the narrative of social media says finished product, no process.
Right.
So we see the Lamborghini, we see the 10-bedroom mansion, we see the Givenchy or the Gucci, and we go, I want that. But the guy is not showing you the sleepless nights. I do about 3 hours every night.
Well, a very warm welcome to the Goldmine show. We are absolutely excited just to bring today's show to you. An amazing, incredibly amazing conversation. You want to tell a friend to just tune in because we've got an amazing conversation. Want to remind you to follow us on the Goldmine show on Facebook, on Instagram, as well as on YouTube. And let's keep building a great community that believes in the greatness inside of every single one of us, but more importantly, continues to nurture it so that we become the greatness that we truly must become. Today's guest is an amazing guest. Man, I tried to introduce him. I don't think I can do a good job at it. His credentials, if I was to read all of them, then we're going to spend the whole show just introducing the credentials. But let me just give it a shot, man. He's an amazing speaker, an award-winning futurist. Well, I hope he's going to tell us what a futurist is. And I'm told that question is only asked in Africa, but we're just going to get to hear what that is about. He's a global business keynote speaker, 2 times on the TEDx speaker, investor, serial entrepreneur. Man, the list is long. I might as well just bring the guest, man. He's going to tell us a whole lot about this. None other than Kwame himself.
You know, every time this thing is read, I'm like, who are they talking about?
Well, they're talking about you, man. And what's amazing for me is the fact that, man, you've done this in such a short space of time. He's a millennial, man. I should have said, this is a millennial, man.
Yeah.
Yep. Good to have you on the show, man.
No, this is a privilege, man.
Yeah. Thank you for having us on the show. And welcome to Nairobi.
Thank you. I love Nairobi.
Yep.
I absolutely love the weather.
Yep.
Because it's hot back home.
Yep.
You know, we're like every day on like 22, 23. Whoa. And so to come here at like 16, 17.
Well, you came at a good time, though.
I came at a good time, I know.
Timing is everything.
That's what they said to me.
Welcome and great to have you all the way from Ghana.
Thank you.
And maybe we just start. What brings you to Kenya this time around?
Interestingly, I think for the same reason why I came the last time. I'm in Kenya for its young people.
Right.
I'm in Kenya for impact.
Right.
I'm in Kenya to deliver a message that I believe every young African should hear. It's a very simple message.
Right.
Enough of the complaining.
Right.
Enough of sitting on our hands. It's time to take this thing called technology and start creating value.
Right.
Period.
Right.
I think there's a very pervasive, mindset of consumerism for the young African. Just go on Facebook, scroll. Go on Instagram, scroll. But like for every person you scroll through, they are creating the content for you, for you to consume.
Right.
At what point do you say, I also need to get involved in that conversation? That's why I came to Nairobi.
Because we become consumers. But
that's what we are.
Ability
to do the same thing.
Right.
Same thing.
Right.
You know, so that's my concern for that 2 hours, 2 days you spend, like, let me not use the word wasting so nobody feels offended, but sometimes the truth doesn't really care.
Yeah.
Wasting your data, consuming half of what is junk, you could have researched and prospected your own content as well.
Right.
And that's a conversation we need to start having.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I think it's also a mindset conversation.
Absolutely.
I think it's a mindset.
Absolutely.
I mean, consumerism vis-a-vis creating their value and all of that stuff. It's all a mindset conversation.
Yeah.
So as you transverse, because I mean you are all over the place.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
First time I watched you, actually, I think you were somewhere in
Dubai.
With Vusi.
Yes, sir.
and you're all over the place. And something must have inspired you to do what you do, and maybe it goes back to a bit of your
Yeah.
What really inspires you, and what do you also see as you go along?
Can I be very honest with you? My inspiration was poverty. I was scared of it.
Right.
I saw it at a very early age. I felt what lack felt like. Nothing about it felt good.
Tell us a bit about that, man.
So I grew up in a very small township. You could walk the length and breadth of my township in about 30 minutes. It's on the northern part of our country. It's called Goldmine.
Right,
in Ghana.
Right.
About 10 hours from the capital.
Right.
Accra.
From Accra, yeah.
We didn't have much. My dad was a nurse. My mom was working with a government institution. At that time, I'm sure she was earning maybe about, compared to inflation, maybe about $60, $70 a month. And she was using that to try and put me in school and all of that. It was a typical farming land, so I grew up going to the farm and stuff like that. But then something happened to me, because very early on, my mom started bringing me into books. Right. So it was in books that I found out that there were things like ranches and huge oceans and aeroplanes and trains and horses, and these things were not in my environment. I didn't know what a beggar was till I was 15. We never had a TV till I was like 10. We used to stand in people's windows to watch TV. So you had this reality, and then you read and you hear of all these words that you cannot relate to. Right. And it does something to your brain, this thing called reading, right? Because once the brain, do you know scientifically, in fact biologically, it is actually established that whenever you come into contact with new information, your mind switches up. Like the material brain actually metamorphoses. Right? Literally inside the brain. Right. And new neuron circuits are formed based off of that new information. So the more that this information came into being, the more there was a contrast between my reality and what could be. So I think that also started.
That reality you had is typical. It's
everywhere in Africa. It's how we all grew up. Right. You took every 99% of Africans come from a poor background.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely. And the stories of saying I saw a TV when I was about 15 years. It's
everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's all of us. Literally. We didn't have electricity. Right. I'm a 90s baby, right? So even us, we grew up with a little bit of TV in the beginning, but it was for rich households. Correct. So I think that parallel between what was and what could become was where the conversation started. Right. But also everything about poverty was just, no. You know, so I remember started at one time when I was about 7 years, they asked in school, what do you want to be? And everybody was, I want to be a teacher. Right. And at that time, we used to only, so where I grew up is very close to Ivory Coast. You can literally drive into Ivory Coast. Right. So I think that the aeroplanes that used to fly into Ivory Coast flew over our village. Right. But they were never that low. So you used to hear the plane sounds very high.
Get to see it.
You will never see it.
But you hear it.
So I told the teacher I want to drive an aeroplane. That's my little child brain, you know. Right. So I want to drive an aeroplane. Yes. And he said, "Come here. Yep. Kneel down." What? You little braggart. Everybody's saying what is, you know, even lawyers, we're not sure what's going to happen with that. Have you seen it before? So I knelt down, I got punished for that. It does
for dreaming big
about driving an aeroplane. I think as early on,
But you know, I mean, that is very serious, man. You know, one time I also listened to Steve Harvey.
Yeah.
And he talks about he was ridiculed for dreaming about being on television.
Yes.
Because then the wild view the whole class had, including the teacher at the time,
couldn't see
exposed any of that. And it's almost like this is your teacher then saying, my wild view doesn't incorporate that bit of that.
And I cannot blame him. His mental model could not have imagined that a kid in that village at that time could ever. You know, because I'm sure even in his mind it was a white man's thing. Right. It wasn't even a matter of is it possible. It was a matter of would it ever be available to a kid like him. So I don't blame him. Right. It did affect me very badly. Right. And this does happen to a lot of young people. My culture, I cannot speak about the Kenyan culture, but in my culture, expressing yourself is considered rude and disrespectful.
Well, it seems to be an African thing. So a lot of us growing up had to be suppressed.
And then unfortunately, we equate old age to wisdom. Such a fallacy. I've seen 40-year-old babies. But let's leave it. I don't want to be controversial. so my inspiration was poverty.
So wisdom is not in age.
No, it's not. I don't. I think it's even in the Bible.
Right.
We hoped.
Yep.
And this is why I get into trouble. But if you looked at how our leaders have led us, and a lot of them were old. You know, when the COVID came, was an interesting thing to see. If you look at the data, the top 10 countries that handled COVID very well. Had about countries like Finland. The Prime Minister is 33. Right. Angela Merkel is in her early 50s or so. But if you look at the data, Emmanuel Macron, if you look at the data, a lot of the countries that handled it well were being managed by people between the ages of 30 to about early 50s. A lot of the countries that handled it, like Jack, were the people who were 70, 72. We wished that old age would come with wisdom, but it's not automatic, you know. So what was my inspiration? As early on as I can tell you, it was poverty. Right. It was, I want to taste what's on the other side of the world.
What you kept reading.
What I kept reading.
The realities that your books present.
Where are these things, you know? Right. And that's how I started.
Right. And it's unfortunate they say sometimes if you want to hide something away from an African
put it in a book, and this is true till today. Because of that, when I got agency, when I had the opportunity to express myself and to influence people, one of the first things we did, and it's still running till today, we established something called Knowledge Merchants. And there's a community. We started with a community of about 400 people. It was a very single challenge. Read one book a month. Now we come together as a community, we discuss it, and it's grown. But as it's grown, I've handed it over to managers, and one of my managers, Dr. Omane, I absolutely love and respect him, so I needed to give him this shout out, had said, you know what, there's a certain level of privilege that should come with this kind of thing. So now we've cut the community down to people who are strictly adhering to reading the books, writing their reports on the books. So it's now a community of about 80 people, but there are people who never miss a day. They never miss a month of not completing a book.
And it's about the discipline.
And it's about the discipline.
It's about the discipline.
And you can tell in the quality of life that these guys are living. I think out of this time, I have about 8 books to my name now. And a lot of the people who joined our community are writing books. So that was also one of the things that really inspired me.
And it would be very interesting just to look at the group that started.
Yeah.
And compare that indiscipline vis-a-vis the discipline.
Of the ones who are there now.
Absolutely, of the guys who are there right now. And because sometimes I think we've got to go back and just indicate empirically, this is that value.
Yes.
Beyond even the neurons, just
this is the quality of life it gives to you.
Because it's unfortunate that basic as it sounds, we still must encourage each other to read.
Yes. And there's this thing that Jordan Peterson says. I'm an avid student of Jordan Peterson. If you don't, I'm giving you a free resource. Go on YouTube and type Jordan Peterson. Your life will change, guaranteed in 90 days if you listen and apply. And Jordan Peterson says, nobody ever tells us why we should read.
Right.
And he says, but think about it. We need to tell young men and young women to read because, one, it makes you make informed decisions.
Right.
And it saves you all of the trouble of making all these silly decisions, you know, because when you think about it, people go through 25, 40 years, 50 years of life and put that experience in a material that you can go through in 25 days.
Right.
Why expose yourself to 25 years of trouble when you could gather information that saves you the pain?
Absolutely.
It's like there's either the pain of learning via other people's experience, and I don't even think that is pain.
Right.
Or the real pain of going through it yourself. And so it's like reading should have been as natural to us as breathing. Ignorance is actually not bliss at all.
You can say that.
It's not bliss at all. Trust me. I don't know who made that statement, but I think the person was trying to be sarcastic. Yeah. Ignorance is not bliss. What you don't know will kill you.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
There's a show I really used to love. It's called 1,000 Ways to Die.
Right.
And every time I watch that show, I'm like, dude, the number of times I could have died just because I didn't know.
Just out of ignorance.
There are things in the ocean that could just sting you, and you wouldn't feel a thing, and it will kill you in 24 hours.
Right.
Do you know you can choke on your own cough? and die,
and you're gone.
and you're gone. You know, so ignorance is not bliss. My brother Moses Arthur, he says, ignorance is darker than under the bed. Like, what you don't know will finish you. So that's why we should.
I think we also grew up with the fallacy that says experience is a good teacher.
Well,
but I suspect it must be evaluated experience. Someone has put it in a book.
If somebody has given you the information, why go through it?
Right.
There's no point. Like, why do that? Because there's nothing new under the sun. It's Solomon who said it.
Right.
Arguably the wisest.
The wisest man that ever
He
lived.
says there's nothing avant-garde.
Yep.
You're not gonna create any. Look at the world. We rotate in cycles.
Right.
We go baggy, then we go slim fit, then we go baggy again. You know, we just go round in circles. The technology comes and the technology dies, then we go back.
Absolutely.
Look at it. We move from big telephony mobile devices, and then we shrink, and now they keep opening up, and we want a bigger screen. Now we have iPads, and it's like we just keep going round in circles. There's nothing new under the sun.
Absolutely.
So there's no point going through it yourself.
Right. So running away from poverty truly inspired.
Yes.
And therefore, then you went through your reading staff and all of that stuff. Then you became a speaker.
Yes.
Tell us about that. I mean, you've been in different spaces.
So the little kid that used to get, you know, in our primary days, I don't know if that was with you guys, they used to write a list of talkatives. And then in our system, they have something called double punishment, which means
so on our side, we used to call them noisemakers.
Right, I was the leader of that gang, right?
Right.
And so they do double punishment for if you talk more.
Right.
I used to tell the class captain, immediately the teacher says, write names of talkatives. I go to her, I say, put my name there. I will not be able to keep quiet.
Right.
I will talk and talk and talk.
Right.
So I used to have DP, is double punishment. There was a time the teacher beat me so much, every time he saw my name, he's like, Kwame, sit down.
I guess.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
You will not change.
Yeah.
So that's how I started.
Right.
Went through primary, junior high school, finished it. In high school, the seed was birthed. Unfortunately for me, just like other parents do, and I love my dad for it, but back then it didn't make any type of sense. But I think that background really helped. I knew very early on, based off of how much I had been exposed to knowledge through books, that I wanted to pursue this thing called communication, speaking, writing, stuff like that. So when I was going into high school, I chose general arts, and I was going to focus on the languages. And then my dad, being an influential person, because remember I mentioned that he was a nurse when I was growing up, but at that point he had become a doctor and was in our educational system as an authority figure. Right. So I think he was able to make some calls. When I arrived and I had gotten my high school placement, they had changed it to science. I hated it. The first class was chemistry. I knew.
This is not you.
Nah, I'm finished for the next 3 years.
Right.
So I think the only thing that saved me in those 3 years was Writers and Debaters Club, and then the editorial team. So I joined the editorial team. I was one of the few people who in level 100, because you could even apply onto level 200. But on level 100, I think I had been proactive and charismatic enough to catch the attention of my seniors. So I got into the editorial team, started writing the articles, the columns for our school magazine every year. And then I joined the Debaters Club and was writing the debating speech and stuff. So maybe that's where the real professional seed of standing in front of people and speaking came from. So second year, third year, I was the guy who was in first year. So when they were now opening up to recruit, they all came to meet me. So I was automatically on top of the ladder. So I did a lot of the debates for school, and I think that's where it all started. But also, this part of my story I barely tell. I gave my life to Christ after junior high school, going into senior high school. So I also did a lot of preaching. And at that time, I studied men of God. So T.D. Jakes, Archbishop Duncan Williams. There was another bishop called Bishop Noel Jones. Those were the guys I started learning articulation, lofty words, presentation, and all of that. So it was pulpit with the writers and debaters and the editorial team that put together the foundation,
backed up with the background of having been
on books, and so much information. I always had something to tell them.
Boiling up on the inside.
It's just so much.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing about knowledge. It wants to come out. We don't learn to satisfy our ignorance. We learn to pass information on. And create value. So that's where profound one. Yes, sir.
That's a profound one.
Yes, sir.
Very, very profound.
Yes, sir. So that's how it then started. So after high school, what typically happens in my country, we wait for 8 months to a year for our results to come before university. And what a lot of us do is we go do internships or we go teach.
Right.
At the time, my dad said, go teach.
Yep.
This is 2009.
Right.
I was going to be paid 40 cedis a month. 40 cedis at the time was the equivalent of $8. Bring inflation in, is maybe $40. This today's money.
Right.
Is what I was going to earn every month.
Right.
I said no. At that time, internet cafes were springing up everywhere. The internet was a thing. That curiosity again.
Right.
I want to know.
Yep.
So I said, Dad, no. I want to do media. I want to understand this internet thing. It seems to be the buzzword.
Right.
I had a stepbrother who supported me with coins, you know, to go pay for 1 hour in the internet cafe and use that. So that's how that one started.
Right.
I started knocking doors. I want to be a presenter. They're like, you have no background. You've not studied for it. You're just a little kid. I said, I can talk.
Yeah.
Trust me, I can talk.
Give me a chance.
Just give me a chance.
Right.
A year and a half, nobody did. But I stuck around.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest thing that helped me. Was I went knocking on doors going, what can I do to help? How can I serve you?
Offering service.
Just what can I do?
Right.
And so I did it for somebody long enough. Remember, I had the writing skill.
Right.
So if they weren't going to allow me to talk in front of the camera, let me write, let me clean, let me put the place together. And then one day they look at you and said, you've been here. What can I do for you?
Right.
Then I go, teach me TV presenting.
Wow.
So it was one big TV presenter that I worked for a whole year. His name was John Jermaine, who said, kid, what can I do for you? He was one of the top 3 male presenters. And I said, teach me. He looked at me and said, I'll do you one better. Learn via experience. The following week I was on TV.
Wow.
That's how I started.
And he honored your consistency for the while you'd been there. Honored your offering of service and and your diligence and everything. And that message must go especially to our young people.
Yes.
I mean, there's no microwave way.
No,
it
doesn't work.
I have a process on it.
And that's my problem with social media now.
Right.
The narratives of social media says finished product, no process.
Right.
So we see the Lamborghini, we see the 10-bedroom mansion, we see the Givenchy or the Gucci, and we go, I want that. But the guy is not showing you the sleepless nights. I do about 3 hours every night of research and reading. I'm a knowledge merchant.
Right.
The day my knowledge becomes obsolete, I'm done.
Right.
I'm finished.
Right.
Nobody sees that.
Right.
It's the 45 minutes they see on TV.
Your core tool of trade is your knowledge.
It's my knowledge.
Yep. That's what you trade on.
I trade knowledge. I'm a knowledge merchant.
Right.
So it's the 45 minutes. Everybody goes, oh my God, you're such a great speaker.
Because that's what they see.
That's what they see.
Right.
But dude, there's 45 hours of research for that 45 minutes you're not aware of.
Right.
You know, and it didn't feel good. I could have played video games too. I could have partied with my friends too.
Right.
But I set my butt for hours for you to see this.
But are you guys showing that part? Because I also say I agree. We see the Lamborghini, we see all of that. But who is showing the process?
Well, anybody who follows me will tell you. I don't hide that.
Yep.
In fact, I'm one of those. You go through my Instagram, go through 10 of my posts, and I will tell you in my captions that this is what goes on. Half the time on my stories at 2 a.m. when I'm studying.
Right.
I put the camera on my screen and I put it there whilst you're asleep.
Yep.
This is what we're doing.
Right.
I don't hide it anymore.
Right.
When I go on stage, when I got the opportunity to talk to 2 people, I let them know.
Brilliant.
Because I think we did it.
Yep.
Those who got voices, those who got agency, those who got platforms, we didn't tell them the process.
Right.
We only showed them the finished product.
Right.
That's what has produced that microwave a mindset that needs to go away.
And I must say kudos for teaching the process.
Thank
because if we don't, then we tell half the story.
Absolutely.
We tell half the story.
Absolutely.
And we show the glam, but we don't show the pain.
Never. And which is not sustainable. You're going to have a very crazy society.
Yep.
And that's why people are cutting corners. Crime is on the rise.
Right.
People are online trying to, instead of legitimately find money, cut corners through different ways to steal from people. We did that, and that needs to change.
Yep.
Absolutely.
It's going to change. And I'm glad that we've got people like you who are changing the script, man. Thank you for showing us a pain.
Absolutely.
You're one man that is truly passionate about Africa.
Yes.
And you're investing your days, your hours, your everything across the African continent, and you just want to talk about that, and from a tech side of things and the many things that you're doing around this space, and really the vision around it.